call our meeting to order for the City of Erie Land Bank meeting for February 17th. And I would like to start off by seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda and the minutes from our January 27th meeting.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, agenda and minutes are approved. That takes us to finance report. April?
Thank you. In your packet, the first page that should be showing on there is the balance sheet. So as of January 31st, it was showing in the checking where we had $73,093.10. The escrow checking is still sitting at $30,000, and total assets were $166,432.60. On the back of that page, you will find the profit and loss. So as of the end of January, we were showing a net income of $8,625.06. Then we included the budget versus actuals for 2025 just through January. So total expenses, we had $76,868.88 out of the budgeted amount of $632,400. So it's showing we have about 87.8% remaining in our budget. And then the last page is just the list of checks that were dispersed for January.
So April, it looks like we got caught up with reimbursements from the county.
We did for December that was deposited in January, yes.
Any questions on the finance report?
Yep.
Good, Chuck?
I'm good, thank you.
Some very good. Any questions? Okay. All right, I'd seek a motion then to approve the finance report as presented.
I'll make that motion.
And a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That takes us to citizens' comments. Have any citizens wishing to speak today? Citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments? Anybody reach out to us?
No correspondence.
Okay. All right, takes us to the report of the executive director. Aaron?
All right, thank you, board. Thank you, Chris. Just wanted to give the board an update of kind of where the land bank stands as far as total properties and inventory and where we are at. So right now, under the land bank's control, we have 85 properties. That includes vacant lots and properties with structures in which we're working on remediation. 23 of those 85 have structures on them. 12 of those 23 have demo contracts or are currently out for demo bid or awaiting a contract to be signed. The remaining 11 are being evaluated. That includes being evaluated or rehab. That includes Cameron Road, 1320 Patterson, 163 Brighton, along with 2626 Pennsylvania, and a couple other in which we are working on cleaning out in an effort to allow them a better evaluation and potential rehabilitation. So to date, since land bank inception, we have sold 85 properties, which includes vacant lots and properties for rehab and development. So just kind of wanted to provide that little snapshot. I'm going to work on getting the board some more data on developer proposals and such, just to kind of provide as much data as possible based upon that, along with just an average sale price. But we're currently reconciling the land bank list to make sure that it's accurate so we can get the website updated. Any questions on that? Excuse me.
So Aaron, out of those 11 remaining, you think there's some pretty strong rehab possibilities
There are. There was a couple rehab candidates. 2626 Pennsylvania is a big one. Very decent property, vinyl sided, new windows, but it was full of belongings and trash. So we contracted with an entity, a contractor, to clean it out. It's been cleaned out, and so now we'll go through the evaluation process and see how we want to proceed with that.
think too, it might be good just to take a measure again of how much we have demoed as well, how much blight I know we had a number a year ago or so, it was over 100, I think. Maybe that'll be a good number to keep up with.
Absolutely. And I will, I'm working with Jeremy, County Land Bank, to update that Act 152. There were some numbers in there that were a little off. So we're going to work this week to get him an updated property list of what's going to come off the Act 152 so that we can get those listed up on there, and so that just so the board's aware and the public in general. On erielandbank.org is the list to the Act 152 dashboard created by Erie County government, which details the Act 152 funds that have been collected and dispersed since its inception within Erie County. And then one other thing is so if you remember, we had discussed kind of going through our 50/50 tax recapture, which is the land bank's ability to capture 50% of the tax revenue for 5 years post-transfer of a property. And I know we've talked about it many times in side lots, and now that we're combining side lots, we won't get that tax revenue, but that's minimal. It's more of those rehabbed properties that once we sell them, we get the 50/50 of the tax for that year. And so through that, Cynthia and Angel have been instrumental in getting those invoices out, and we'll have an update next month on how much that has brought in from the city and the county. But in that, in review of the intergovernmental agreement with the Erie School District, it was left blank in that we are supposed to create an MOU with the school district on how we will recapture that tax revenue from the school district. So I drafted an MOU and sent it over to Jean and Mel for their review prior to sending it off to the school district for their review. So hopefully here in the next month or so, we'll get that final piece of that intergovernmental agreement completed and be able to invoice the city, or I mean the school district, for all of the tax revenue for properties that we have sold of those 85 properties. So that's in the process, and somewhere you'll see that probably on the school district agenda here in the near future.
That's half the school tax for 5 years after sale.
Yes.
Wouldn't think you'd have a problem.
No, and it was in the agreement. They signed the agreement. It just said specifically that the process associated with getting that funding to the land bank would be drafted in an additional memorandum of understanding. So that's all that MOU is just kind of outlines our process that we've used for the city and county to date. It is summarized in that MOU that we'll get over to the school district. Just how we will invoice, when we will invoice, and how that will be staggered at that point. So
What are we proposing, then, like once a year or quarterly? I mean, what?
It's once a year, and so what we found from experience 3 years ago when we initially did the first requisition was that it's best to wait until January to bill for so January 2025, we sent invoices out for 2023 and previous tax years. So in January of 2026, we will invoice for 2024 tax year.
Okay.
It saves confusion with properties that haven't paid taxes, with any of those other issues. What we found was that if we bill in January of 2025 for 2024, there's taxes that are late, there's taxes that are delinquent, whatever the case would be, and it just causes a whole lot of issues for finance to reconcile those invoices. And so it's just better for us to delay 1 year and then basically do a look back of a year prior to that.
Yeah, especially as we get in, if we start doing more rehabs or development, you're gonna have those reassessments. It's gonna take time to get the right number anyways, so.
Absolutely, so.
Okay. Very good.
That is all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Aaron? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to our solicitor's report. Gene?
Good afternoon, Board. Happy to continue to report that we're pushing things forward. We have, you'll see in the memorandum, sales agreements we're expediting closing on all those. We should have those tidied up here certainly by month end. Aaron and his staff has been really helpful in working with the taxing authorities to clear any back due real estate taxes for properties that are acquired for and on behalf of the land bank. We are continuing to work with a prior tenant in 621 Wallace Street. I think we're probably pretty close to having that situation completely resolved. We were as cordial as we could with her, and also as pushing her to make sure that this was happening, so that it wasn't just kicked down the road repeatedly. So this, again, was a longtime tenant who was in there, and then we inherited her along with a daughter and about 2 lives worth of junk. So again, I think we're close to having this done and all of that resolved by month end. The number of quiet title actions that are coming to conclusion is really encouraging. And most importantly, you'll see the ones that have been long overdue with regard to best. So the order was entered, we wait 30 days to make sure that there is no objection to it, and those transactions will take place in very short order. I've already reached out to Attorney Laura Mott to help schedule and finalize that process. And again, because of the number of quiet title actions that we are filing, we are now getting more than one judge being assigned. They're starting to spread the wealth a little bit. So that's okay. Judge Ridge is now in the soup along with Judge Mead. So they have all reached out to me, and we're it's all good. And you'll see. So you've kind of. And why not Judge Sala? We dragged him into the soup as well. So again, I think it's a good thing. It's an indication that they know that what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish for the city, and they want to, and they don't want the courts to be the backlog, to be the bottleneck. So they're spreading it out a little bit. Or I think it's all good, and have not received much. I haven't received any pushback, so it's been good. And then again, we just want to update again the inner transfers between Race and the Erie Land Bank, itemizing those transactions as well. So. In all, it's taken us, again, I've said it before, it's taken us a while to fine-tune all of it, but I think we're at a point where it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and we're getting results done so that we can do what we're supposed to do, is get these properties clear, the title clear, and offered to the community at large for future use to get them back on the tax rolls.
Have any of the quiet title actions been contested?
I'm sorry?
Have any of the quiet title actions been contested, or do you move towards default judgment on them?
Sumner, a couple have been contested, mostly by a second lender. And then what I've been able to do is to educate them as to why it's in their best interest just to sign off on them. So those are, and again, they hadn't started foreclosure actions or anything like that. They were just something that was in their portfolio that they weren't even worried about. So really, the only entities that will come up and contact me would be lenders of some distance. Now, I have been contacted by the county with regard to liens for probationary liens and things like that. So, and I'm working with Bob Cataldi to help expedite that, because when they get named, the county gets named for in any capacity, they have to shoot it to their insurer, which is the state. So I've been working with Bob Cataldi and the contact in Harrisburg so that they're just saying, yeah, we understand that you're clearing this old probationary lien of $2,300. And they'll just, so we're putting together a document for them just to sign off and for me to attach it. Kind of like when a federal tax lien, if you notify Department of Revenue, they'll just sign off, they'll sign off on it, but you have to go through that step. So I'm doing the same thing with the state. So those are really the only ones, Sumner, where there's really any pushback. But again, it's through that, it's that process of crossing T's and dotting I's, which took us a while to get to, but we're very comfortable, and the judges now know that we're all very comfortable in that process.
And from start to finish, how long is it taking? 6 months or?
It's pretty close to 6 months. I'm trying to fine tune it to get it closer to 4 months with all the service process and having Mel with, my team helping me with that process. Because again, everybody's anxious to get these cleared up and out and available to the general public. That's the goal. So but you're right, it's about 6 months. So if there's not any questions, that's the report there.
Thank you, Gene. I don't have any questions. I'm good. Okay. All right, let's move on to unfinished business and new business. Aaron?
All right, so last month I provided the land bank's policies and procedures with some updates related to developer agreements and transfer of those in an effort to make our rehabilitations a little bit more efficient, productive, and get them back on the tax rolls and into hopefully home ownership as soon as possible. And so following that discussion, I made some changes. The biggest thing that, as the board discussed, was kind of that management fee or the developer fee on a monthly basis and the ability to get it back to them, if they met the terms of the agreement, meaning if they didn't default in any way, we could give them the money back. So I put there in and I bolded some language in there. And so if there aren't a notice of default, they would get 75% of the total developer fee back. I know the board had kind of expressed 100%. I put 75 in there just, because, I wanted to express to the board, that we don't get a lot of revenue from the land bank. And so managing these developer agreements does take staff time. It does take an administrative burden on the staff of the land bank or the staff that staffs the land bank from the redevelopment authority, to follow through with this. So this would, keeping some of that funding would help offset the losses that we generally incur on all of these properties. I think we, if I averaged it out, it's roughly $11,000 to $12,000 we lose on every property because demolition, acquisition to sell for $500, we're not making any money. So just the ability to keep some of that money and all of this process would be my thought with the 75%. However, the will of the board, if the board wanted to give them back 100% as an incentive for development, I'm certainly fine. I just wanted to plead my case at 75%. So I'm learning from Gene and the attorneys,
No, I was going to say, I actually agree with you as far as just giving them back 75%, because I guess I kind of wondered if we gave back 100%, you put all your time into managing that property, and to give it all back, where would we get money to actually pay for administrative costs and things like that? So I actually agree with that.
And I'm going to make a suggestion. So if you're a real estate developer, a development fee is the revenue you receive. I might suggest that we call this a development fee, because again, when I read that, it says we're paying the developers to do this work, and would ask for that consideration.
No, I
I
agree with you, and yeah.
Different nomenclature for different parts of the segment of our industry, yeah.
I guess the only concern I'd have with saying developer fee, what if the project doesn't go through?
What if it doesn't go through?
I mean, yeah.
And if it's not successful, then we would just recapture it. Okay. I think then it's just a failed development.
Okay.
Yeah, we keep the entire thing.
Yeah, we
instead
keep
of
every
refunding
monthly
it.
payment that they paid along with their escrow fee.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I brought up last month to refund it is because we still have to make sure this makes economic sense, right? To have somebody step forward. So I think it sends the message that we ultimately, we're not in this to just grab a fee from you every month. We want the project to get to the end. So I'm okay with this balance. I know we had gone back and forth on numbers, but I mean, we also need to cover our costs. So I think it's enough incentive for them to know that they can get the bulk of this back if they get moving on this. Don't sit on it for a long time.
Yeah.
So thank you for going back and tweaking this. Are we at the point, Aaron, so this was on agenda last month. Do you need a motion today to adopt the revision?
Yeah, I'm just looking real quick. I think I may have mistakenly removed the monthly fee in changing that to 75%. So I don't, let's see, yeah, I don't see the monthly fee. I know I had $150 in there last month. And so if the board is okay with the 150 that was detailed last month, I would just request a motion from the board amending it to development fee as opposed to developer fee, and acknowledging that it would be $150 a month development fee charged upon the developer for each development, or something like that.
I would move that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor for the new agreement, fee agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Guys have it. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. I will make those amendments and get a final copy out to the board.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I appreciate you taking it back, tweaking it a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Thank you.
okay. All right. So this takes us to a follow-up, again, to a conversation we had last month. And those of you who have been serving with me on the panel know I've been bringing this up frequently, but I think it's worth bringing it up again, especially as we head into construction season, spring coming, and knowing what our inventory is and trying to get this inventory back out again. We've talked about how, we've made tremendous progress up to this point. We've really, started to tackle blight. We've cleaned up lots. Up to this point, we've been able to transfer a lot of lots either to a neighbor as a side yard, or, just somebody in the neighborhood wanted to clean it up, which is all well and good. But we continue to have that one missing component, which is new home construction. We just haven't been able to get that along with rehab. I think rehab we're a little bit closer. But the one component that we haven't been able to really incentivize enough is to get folks to put a shovel in the ground, to actually break ground, build a new home in the city. And at least from my perspective, I don't think we set out on this just to clean up lots and sell them as side yards. I mean, that's always going to be a big part of what we do, but I think we wanted it to be a bigger picture than that, right? And so I just wanted to follow up on some of the suggestions from the past, some of the things I threw out in our last meeting about potentially identifying the right properties that we think the marketplace will determine are good development candidates. And we also talked about advertising this in a packaged way as we try to attract attention to it. So we talked about, for example, adding in the advertising the city's LERTA, 100% LERTA, making sure that those who are applying to develop understand that that's already in place, that they have that. And we just briefly touched on the idea last month's meeting about refunding the acquisition cost, all of the costs associated with securing the lot, the legal cost, et cetera, having all of that refunded to the homeowner when the home is complete. And so I wanted to just put this on paper and have a conversation today. And then we also touched on the idea of maybe trying to do some flexible financing. We're just starting that conversation internally here. Actually, was able to speak with the mayor this morning. Anytime I can get a few minutes with him, he's incredibly busy. I'm always grateful for that. I certainly need to have conversations with council members and see if there's an appetite for this, but we may be looking at ways to try to creatively finance new home construction in the city as well. And so there's a natural tie here with the land bank. We've got to look at some of this inventory, and I think it starts with just a conversation about these 3 points. We certainly are going to want to study this and make sure we do it correctly, but I think we need to start, and we need to maybe tweak the way we advertise some of these lots to try to get a shovel in the ground. So I wanted to start there. I wanted to have a conversation today. I was hoping that we walk away from the meeting today that maybe we can more clearly identify the lots that we want to do this with, because they're going to be select lots. We don't have a lot of funding to work with. So it may only be 2 or 3 a year that we do this collective marketing here. But so it brings us to today. I just wanted to follow up on prior conversations, see what the appetite of the board is, see how this maybe can work between the city and the land bank. And again, we're just starting our conversations internally in the city about how would we have that financing tool work. So that's why I put this on our agenda to discuss today.
I think the low rate financing is a good idea. I've got a couple of properties in the southwest area under contract, which I'll close this Friday. The interest rate's 7.25%. So if you have a concessionary rate and somebody holds on to the property, either as a homeowner or as an investor who then rents the property, the concessionary rate, I think, would help bridge that gap of, for example, my area, Frontier, where the houses sell for 120, 125 a foot, and the build one's going to be 225. I think we need that extra boost to make it work. And you have that, you have that property on Vermont, and then you have another nice property on this Locust Street. And it's really important that those be developed properly, or you're going to, if you put up some modest dwelling there, this is going to be discouraging to those neighborhoods, particularly the one that's right up West 6th Street. So for good or bad, we're going to have all kinds of drive-by on that one.
Good. Thank you.
I say doing nothing is not an option. I think that we can continually to improve. This is continuous improvement, so I think that there's a lot of merit in
Well, I want to add to Sumner's point. I mean, and we've said this before. Those 2 properties you mentioned, to me, just settling to sell those as a yard, right, a side yard to somebody is like throwing up the white flag to me. That's not why we're doing this.
Correct.
This is not, I mean, if that's all we're going to do, it's still an improvement in a lot of cases, but we've got to build on that. And you're correct, it doesn't pencil out right now to build new. And that's not just the city of Erie problem, that's everywhere. There's a housing issue because it's costly to build. But I think with the combination of a 10-year tax abatement, refunding the lot potentially, and we need to talk about how that looks. But you're essentially going to be gifted the land. And then to come in with whether it's 0% or 1%, some either super low interest or interest-free financing, when you add that up and you amortize that over the life of that home, I think we're a lot closer to tipping that economic scale. We've got to be. We certainly have to work out a lot of details. I want to talk with a couple of banks in terms of, do we do this, do we amortize it out longer with a shorter short-term balloon so we can get our money back and recycle it more frequently. I'm not sure yet. There's things I still want to look at, but I felt like we need to start. And I think from the land bank's perspective, if the financing is with the city, we'll work that out internally in the city. From the land bank's perspective, it's two things: identifying the lots that we think this is a good fit for, and coming up with the structure for number two, which is how do we refund that acquisition cost, which just in its most basic form would be, I think, when there's a certificate of occupancy issued, because then you know the project happened. But, you know, there's a lot of detail we'd have to work out on that. But I just wanted to get the panel's view on this in a little more formal way, because we've just sort of been throwing comments out left and right. Yeah, we should do this, we should look at that, but we never really put it on paper. I would like us to try to develop these 3 points, because I really think they could get some activity and finally fill out that last piece that we say we want. So my ask of you and of our solicitor is, you know, can we identify the right parcels, and does it pass legal muster to do the refund of the cost? Which, you know, we can follow up maybe next month and have a formal motion where we adopt some kind of policy, if it takes a month or two. But, you know, I think those are the things that I would ask that you guys look at for us.
Yeah, no, certainly we can, I'll put together, you know, as Sumner said, I think we have two lots right off the bat that are initial good candidates, but I can look at the overall list and maybe see what kind of options are out there as far as other lots. I'll work with Gene. We also have a PA Land Bank Network meeting tomorrow afternoon, kind of have a mild discussion with them to see if maybe there is some potential, you know, thoughts or ideas of how other land banks across the state have maybe addressed this similar issue with driving new home construction, and see if maybe there's some best practices out there. I'll reach out to the Land Bank, the National Land Bank Network, to see if maybe other states who have been doing this a lot longer have had, you know, some other best practices. So I'll work with Gene, and then we'll see what we can pull together and get it out to the board for next month.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, there may be another community doing this already in some form, you know. So.
Aaron, what time, would it be okay if I just sat in and listened to, is it a conference call or is it a Zoom meeting for me just to?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I'll get you the
Would
forward
you do
you on
that?
the
That'd be
link.
great. Yep. I'd love to be a part of that.
Okay. That's really all I had on that. You know, maybe next month we can, even if it's just a draft form, some kind of proposal then for the second point of refunding the land. Maybe we can have a draft to start studying. And by then I may have some more clarity on potential financing. I just dropped this on the mayor a couple hours ago, so it's it's not fully baked. And I certainly want to talk with council members and see if there's even an appetite for that. But even if it's not all three, I think 1 and 2 are doable. One's in place already. Number 2 is under our dominion. So we'll see.
Makes sense.
That's all I have on that, Aaron. If
Okay.
you want to, we can move on to other business if you have any other items for today.
Yeah, I have no other business currently, so
Okay.
that's all I have for today.
Okay. Solicitor, we good? Cynthia? All right, well, thank you for the updated numbers, Aaron, on the properties, because I lose track of where we're at, so that's helpful. Any comments or suggestions from the panel? Okay. All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and adjourn for the day. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next month. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.